Hey guys, Edre here, and I am going to be reviewing the new Tame Impala album, The Slow Rush. So, Tame Impala, I overall think is a really good project. I think that it really is kind of like the modern equivalent to the psychedelic stuff of the 60s and like even some of the more, stuff like Pink Floyd in the 70s, but with a much more modern and up-to-date style. And I appreciate that. And the first thing that I'd say, the first project that really drew my attention was Lonerism. I think Lonerism is one of the best of the decade. I think its blend of very Beatles-esque, um, John Lennon-y type sound that he was kind of exploring with on that album really actually was translated pretty well into that modern sound. It was produced more modern. It was had a much more modern feel to it. Their follow up Currents in 2015 was definitely much more pop appeal. I mean, the less I know, the better. A few other songs that are pretty big. I don't like that one as much as Lonerism, but I think that either way, Tame Impala's on a good track here. But it's been 5 years. 5 years later, we get the Slow Rush. And going into this, I actually didn't really pay much attention to the singles that were dropped. Really, I didn't have much of an intention to really listen to them, to be completely honest with you. So I'm just going to go straight into this. I didn't have much background of what to expect. Some of the pros about this, or just some of the things I noticed that I liked, was kind of mixed here, but the vocals. I think that it does give me very much, in some places, believe it or not, Robert Plant type vibes, but take that out of the picture. I think in general, he definitely continues on his, he builds on to his vocal style, which he had already been experimenting with. But the vocals are also a con. I wish he did more with them. I wish that he did more. It's just a lot of the times it gets monotonous every now and then, which can be a bit disappointing. The atmosphere of this thing, if there's one thing Tame Impala is great at, it's creating a good atmosphere. And I think one of the other things that I really enjoy is the fact that this is a very infectious album. There are some songs on here that the more I listen to, the more I like, or the more I want to listen to it, even if I don't necessarily like it more. And I haven't really felt that way about many of Tame Impala's previous, projects. So that is pretty cool. Is that? Okay, I'm just making, sorry. The cons. There has been, as well as much as it is infective, or infectious, there's definitely some repetitiveness of it. I wish there was more diversity in the sound, but unfortunately there really isn't. And there are some bits of this album that I would say are a bit unmemorable. Overall, though, I would say that this album, the way I would describe it, is 70s music, 70s rock with more psychedelic stuff in a modern nutshell. Songs like Posthumous Forgiveness is one of the highlights of this album. That fits that description perfectly. It has very much. It gives me very much of some of Led Zeppelin's slower material, while taking a bit of a hybrid of some of the more early Pink Floyd and Beatles into that to make a pretty decent song. Some of my favorite songs here: Instant Destiny. It gives me a really nostalgic lo-fi feel, despite it being fresh, and I really appreciate that. The song Borderline does have a good pop appeal. I'm pretty sure this is one of the singles that came out before, and I think he made this one a little different. But Borderline to me is definitely a highlight here. Posthumous Forgiveness I already brought up. And Lost in Yesterday has a good driving bass throughout it. I think in the song structure and everything comes together quite well. Some songs that aren't necessarily good or bad, there's pretty decent songs that I feel like are worth bringing up. Breathe Deeper is kind of that definition of being infectious. I think it's a very infectious song. I want to listen to it more and more and more. Although I will say the length does make it drag out a bit, and I wish it was a little more condensed. The next one that I would say is kind of in this mid-tier category is, what did I do? One more year. I almost said 1 more hour. 1 more year. That's not what I said. What is it? 1 more hour. Man, I am sorry. I am a little out of it right now. 1 More Hour is kind of Tame Impala's attempt at doing more prog rock, and I have my criticisms of prog rock. I will say I find it to have a lot of pretentious qualities to it, but I think Tame Impala did a decent job, bringing it to the table. And then the song "Tomorrow's Dust" is the last one I want to mention in this kind of mid-tier, not too good, not too bad. It reminds me a lot of a Moon-Shaped Pool era Radiohead. It reminds me a lot of their song Present Tense. A lot of that comes from the guitar and the vocals. And now for the songs, there's really only one that I really don't like, and Is It True? It has a good bass line. I mean, that it has that going for it, but as a song, it doesn't do much for me, and I think in general, it's really very forgettable. So overall, how I feel about this, a little disappointed in some ways, I mean, I wasn't the biggest fan of Currents, but I definitely enjoyed it a lot, and I was kind of hoping that, we would get something more along the lines of Lonerism or something a little different. But this is kind of, in some ways, what I expected, so I can't really be complaining too much. I think it's decent. I think there's enough good songs, and I think that he really knows his strengths and plays into his strengths pretty well. The only issue is, like, we've heard these strengths many times before, that it's starting to get a little more repetitive and forgettable, and it really is 70s music in a modern nutshell. I know this is a really short review, and I honestly don't have much else to say. I wish I had more, but, I've settled on giving this a strong 7. I give it a strong 7, It's not higher than a 7, because I feel like the flaws do drag this thing down a good amount. But I don't give it lower than a 7, because I feel like he knows his strengths, he utilizes them, and he builds upon them, and I definitely appreciate that. So, Tame Impala, The Slow Rush, 7 out of 10. That's about it for now. Goodbye.